Are we starting? Not yet.
Yes, I can attend.
Okay, I am Sciortino from Junction, from the venue here in Bangkok at the Bangkok Arts and Cultural Center. We focus on Southeast Asia, like you all know, and we have given special attention to Myanmar even before the coup, but even more since February 2021 when we start this series to give updates about what is happening in the country and try to keep attention for the conflict that is still ongoing almost for a year from February 2021. We have, as usual, we have different resource person and then we open the floor for question and answer. We are very glad to have again Khin Omar, and Khin Omar is a well-known peace, gender, and many other things, a writer and activist, and we are very glad to have her again with us today. She has participated in the update for I think more than six episodes, actually twice six episodes, and now she's again back with us in this November episode. So please, Khin, I want also to thank our media partner, Misima and Irawadi, which allow us to reach a great number of people outside the one that are here on Zoom. Please, Khin.
Thank you. Thanks, Leah. Thanks to all of you for joining this afternoon. So this is actually my second round coming back to Junction to actually share with you the update of what's happening in Myanmar. So I'm actually I'm glad for this opportunity because we are pretty much fast approaching towards the end of the 2024, which is also approaching to the 4th year of the Myanmar People's Revolution since 2021. So it's a good time to also update to you all of where things are now. So let me start with, I hope that we'll have enough time to have the question and answer interaction. So I'll try to be as brief as possible, but it's difficult with everything what's happening, so I'll try my best. Let me start with where the things are on the ground in terms of the human rights situation, also the humanitarian in linking to that. The human rights situation in the year in 2024 is actually got far worse than last year because the Myanmar military actually, they heavily rely on the airstrikes and also the artillery shellings into the civilian, like targeting the civilian areas. And that has actually seen more human suffering on the ground. The airstrikes in the first 8 months of the 2024 alone already got to totaling of over 1,600 counts. And that actually is amounting to nearly half of the total airstrikes since the military's coup attempt in 2021. So basically, if you count over the past 3.5, almost 4 years' time, the total counts of the airstrikes by the Myanmar military is more than 3,400. And that half of that is seen in this year. So that's really is quite intensifying. That has actually led to more intensified humanitarian crisis, which leading to over 3.4 million internally displaced people fleeing from the military's attacks. And that number is from the United Nations, but on the ground, the local humanitarian and human rights actors, community leaders have documented. In fact, the number that UN could reach is actually understated number. The number could be far high. The arson attacks also has been very rampant. And for now, the documentation from the human rights groups have already counted over 100,000 civilian properties being destroyed. So that's the destruction over the public properties that has been documented. And when it comes to the human rights and democracy activists or the political prisoners, you can see that the junta has arrested over 27,000. By now, more than 21,000 remain behind the bars. And among those 21,000, more than 5,000 are women political prisoners or the human rights defenders. So that is where the things are on the ground with regards to the human rights. But as I was saying, the crisis of the humanitarian crisis has really reached to the point with not only with the man-made by the Myanmar military, but also it's combined by the natural disaster like the cyclone Yagi that the country's seen in the last few months. The challenge is that the climate change, of course, there's a huge impact across the region. I mean, you saw not only in Myanmar, but also in Vietnam, like Laos, even Thailand. But for Myanmar, what is far worse is because the humanitarian crisis was already far worse, and that is actually caused by the Myanmar military's violence. So it's very challenging for the local humanitarian actors in responding. Right now, the way how our people are responding to the crisis on the ground is what we call as the people-to-people solidarity model. It's simply because the international humanitarian actors are not able to have access to the people who are most in need. It's simply because the military is not allowing them, not giving them the access. In fact, they are actually weaponizing the aid. And unfortunately, the big aid donors, sending through the UN agencies. Unfortunately, the UN agencies are not able to have access. All the INGOs are not able to have access. So it really is the local actors who are able to do such work, and yet these international donors who have to go through the Myanmar military, who created this disaster, the crisis, are not able to support the local humanitarian actors who are directly responding to on the ground. And the only way that we are able to have the support is from the private, like-minded, trusted, like-minded private donors and diasporas from Myanmar's diaspora, from different ethnic communities, live abroad, all over the world, they play a major role in responding to this humanitarian crisis. The challenge that we're having now, as we're approaching the 2024, we learn more and more on the ground. This Myanmar military junta is actually planning for a sham election for which they have no legitimacy or legality to hold anything called election. But of course, they will not give up any chance to grab the power or the control over the country. It's almost 4 years this military has tried, but people's resistance so strong and so persistent that they are actually losing on the ground. They are losing the ground. They are losing on the ground in terms of the recruit. They are losing on the ground in terms of the people support. Of course, they have completely lost since 2021 as they try to grab over the power like that. But also actually over the 4 years, because the resistance movement has been very, very strong in different fronts. The civil society, the youth, human rights defenders, in terms of the political defiance and nonviolence, keep striving without wavering of their efforts. And the people support continue to be very firm. And that is another front, which is the armed struggle. And armed struggle advanced within the 2024 in particular, brought to the point where this Myanmar military is on the verge of collapse. The world who follow Myanmar's human rights situation or political crisis for ages have that perception this Myanmar military, who ran the country for more than 6 decades, is so hard to break, that this institution is so strong that it will not fall. But that perception has changed, particularly towards the end of 2023 last year to now, that Myanmar military lost territorial control very rapidly. At this point, the research say that more than 70% of the country territory is under the effective control of the revolution. And that means the different armed resistance from the legitimate interim government and their allies also who have been struggling for self-determination for ages, like the Kachin and the Karen, the Karani and the Chin. They are also they are going through the moments of where they join forces on the ground to reclaim and regain their territory. So you're seeing that in Myanmar's ethnic frontier regions, as well as in central Myanmar, the effective control under the revolution has expanded in this year quite large. Like, for example, in the Karenni state bordering with Thailand, more than 90% of the Karenni state territory is already under the administration of the Interim Executive Council of Karenni, which is the interim government. And similar are happening in other areas, as well as like in the Karen, for example, in the West, in Rakhine, the Arakan army has gained a lot of controls, for example, like they have set up these administrations. So what we're seeing is Myanmar is going through a homegrown, very challenging and intense, but it is very homegrown political transformation process, which is for different communities who lived under the repression of the Myanmar military for generations, are now fighting against this military to end the military impunity, to end this, to dismantle this military institution, but to come together in the nation-state building process from the bottom-up approach, horizontal people's movement. So this is where things are happening. It's quite fluid, I have to say. It's not like there is no such one formula and one identical things happening, but there are a lot of identical happening in terms of their political aspiration for the coming together, for the equal power sharing in the new Myanmar as they envision and set out to achieve in the federal framework. So there are a lot of these political things are happening. But on the other hand, in terms of the military, I see the Myanmar military airstrikes are much more severe and more intense. Of course, also understandably, because the Myanmar military keep losing on the ground. And I think that's the only way for them to keep terrorizing the country, people across the country, is by airstrikes. So they're using the jet fighters, but they're also using very advanced combatant drones. And unfortunately, many of these military support and weapons like drones, China is supporting. So we're seeing more of the neighboring countries, especially China in particular. Particularly China has stepped up with its public, showing that to the public its support, both militarily and politically, to this illegal Myanmar military. And I would say that China's aggression against the Myanmar people's sovereignty has become more intense in the last few months. China put lots of pressure on the ethnic revolutionary leaders who are closer to their border, for example, like in the north, whereas also China's scam businesses are trying to infiltrate and entrench more to the south, where China brought the military junta's chief, Min Aung. They invited him to come to China and try to bring try to bring him back to the political scene in the regional, try to give him more legitimacy. So these are the things that we are seeing on the ground. It's in spite of the people's like homegrown process, people's like efforts with a very little, international support in terms of even to address the humanitarian crisis. The movement has gone quite far and advanced already. Of course, for the Myanmar military, I mean, it's not surprising for any of us, right? They will, of course, go and beg support from a country like China. Why not, right? Because China has been reaping off our country's natural resources forever, and all of their economic interest is there. So China's neo-colonial agenda has come to be more and more visible. And of course, for the Myanmar military, this is also for their way out. Without China's support, they have the whole country against them, right? So I think that's where we are seeing as we are reaching towards the end of the 2024. On the other side, okay, so I talk about China, but then we have another largest Asian countries as our neighbor, which is India. India, where is India, people ask. And India is still not taking side with the people or supporting the democracy movement. And we were hoping that China, with China's taking a further step in taking side with the Myanmar military, we're hoping that, of course, India continue to claim to be the largest democracy of the world, will do some good things. But so far, we're not seeing any substantial in terms of the practical support lending to the Myanmar People's Revolution in terms of the political support or any other. So I think it's quite challenging. But now let me bring you to the landscape of the ASEAN, because again, we are, as a country, surrounded by also the ASEAN countries, particularly Thailand and Laos. Laos being quite influenced by China. This year, 2024, ASEAN was chaired by Laos, and Laos' approach to Myanmar was very obvious since January 2024, like Laos being the lead of the chairman of the ASEAN. Then there is this ASEAN special envoy who's supposed to be tackling the Myanmar crisis on behalf of the ASEAN. But then you see Laos will go immediately to meet with the Myanmar military chief, this illegal military junta leader. There are only three things that they discuss, which is the key point is the junta's planned election. So you can already read, where the ASEAN under Laos chairmanship is approaching. It is really about how to solve Myanmar crisis with a very quick fix solution, which is the same old formula of try to get over and do the hold the election no matter who hold, and how unfair and how unfair or and free, but at the same time the ethnic revolutionary forces who have the armies, what if they actually give up and surrender and ceasefire with the Myanmar military? So then this country will go back to the status quo, and it's patching things up so that is Myanmar goes back to normalcy, right? I think this quick fix solution seems to be not new, and it seems to be also being in the basket of the ASEAN for the last 4 years anyway, and China the same, and India the same. So who knows who else, could be also other quote unquote democracies of the world might think the same thing, right? So I think in that landscape, basically, Myanmar military, of course, like they for them also, like the election is for them is their way out to continue to hold on to power or grab the power more, like through the democracy norms, through the election. So they need to hold this election too. So they've been preparing, in spite of all these, people's rejecting of them, they keep preparing, and they've been preparing to the point of in 2024 they were conducting the census in the areas where they have total control. Where they have total control, they try to conduct the census. But they have many other things. I'm not going to get into the detail with you here. There are many other things that they are also preparing, right? But interesting point in the recent time of the census, the last step of the junta taking the census is they are actually using the military, the police, and also the militia who are holding guns in their hand, going house to house, door to door to collect the census. So this is one thing that we've been informing to the world, to the United Nations, to the EU. If there is any quote-unquote election is to come in 2025, how can anybody in this world will suppose such thing when a census of the people are basically taken at the gun pointing at their head, right? Basically. So I think these are the things that the junta is doing. So the ASEAN, again, so ASEAN had this summit in October in Vientiane in Laos, and ASEAN basically made another decision on Myanmar to keep holding on to their ineffective, or rather, I would say, utterly failed 5-point consensus. And they will keep holding on to it in spite of our repeated call and recommendation to them that they need to go beyond, because these 5 points are not going to solve the Myanmar crisis, while the junta who promised to the ASEAN to uphold these 5 points itself never regarded, right? They totally disregarded those 5-point consensus. The people's side, the revolutionary leaders, they try to engage with the ASEAN and try to be more accommodating, even though those 5 points, they were never consulted. But they try to accommodate as far as I see. But the ASEAN continue to treat the revolution side of the leaders in a more unofficial way, while they continue to look up to the Myanmar military for their fixed solution as the solution for Myanmar. And I think that is the huge mistake the ASEAN continue to make. And they made the decision in October, in which I see the difference of their languages. For example, like by last year and early this year, you will see the ASEAN using their 5-point consensus as peace plan for Myanmar, for inclusive national dialogue process. By October, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, last month, in October, they made a decision in which they changed the language, which I kind of detect of how they are going to move forward. It says in their own decision, in which they say that it will be a Myanmar-led and owned inclusive national dialogue. So it's very challenging for us to see the ASEAN keep shifting of their concept, their conceptualization and their process, how they want to move ahead. But they keep doing that without really having the Myanmar people's legitimate representatives being a part of that discussion. No? But what it tells us is that by next month and onward, the ASEAN is going to push further on the people side of the Myanmar people's representative side to rush into the negotiation with the Myanmar military, hold the election or participate in the election that Myanmar military already orchestrating, and going back to the same old mistake, that they have done before. So I think that's where things are. But there is a little bit of a different move from the international community just 4 days ago. that is actually the International Criminal Court prosecutor submitted an application to the judges of the court to issue an arrest warrant against the Myanmar military chief, Min Aung Hlaing. And we learned that there will be more coming, more requests for the arrest warrant against the other Myanmar military leaders or those perpetrators, who actually committed the genocide against the Rohingya back in 2017. So that's a bit of a little bit of a shift in the current regional international platform, because what is going to be interesting, I'm going to end with this for you to actually interact. What's going to be interesting to see is that, including the Thailand new prime minister, who is young, from the younger generation, where many of the Myanmar young generation who are leading the People's Revolution, some who had thought, like Thai new prime minister from the younger generation, younger politician, will have a more creative, innovative, and progressive ideas to look into the Myanmar young people's revolution and to lend support, so that two countries can really build the people-to-people long-term sustainable solution, that they can complement each other. They can actually hold out their hands to each other for the two countries' peace and prosperity in the coming time as a part of the regional bloc, right? But interesting. This Mekong, whatever the name, I forgot, sorry, this economic grouping that was held following the ASEAN summit, following the Min Aung Hlaing's, the Myanmar military chief visit to China, where he was bestowed as the chairperson of that regional economic grouping, in which that, through the media, we have seen the photos of the Thai prime minister, new prime minister, shaking hands and, walking alongside with this war criminal, Min Aung Hlaing. It's interesting how things are going to be perceived from now on, because the question from the Myanmar people, as I hear from the civil society and human rights defender, is how the world leaders, including leaders of Thailand from the neighboring countries, will actually determine of their relationship with this Myanmar military chief, who now stand accused and who actually are now being like an arrest warrant being applied to the court by the prosecutor of the ICC. I think that's where at the moment things are now. Everybody is wondering what's going to and how it's going to turn out. And of course, China, being the largest ally to the junta, immediately responded that they were not, they don't. Basically, what they're saying is they don't agree with the ICC prosecutor application for the arrest warrant of Min Aung Hlaing. So I'll just end here for any of your questions or discussions or anything that you would exchange. Thank you.
Yes, we have some questions, and indeed already refer to what you have been saying, but I will ask again. They are on Facebook. So the first question that arrived refer exactly to the ICC decision to indeed that the dictator can be arrested. But then the question is, how can be done, considering Myanmar is not part, and China indeed has said that they will not do it, and probably other countries will also say they will not do it. So how is in practice going to be implemented, considering that Myanmar is not part of the ICC jurisdiction in particular? Then another question is how far China will have to go before the US will get involved. Well, I don't know now with the change of president what the implication, because we know that Trump is not so eager to get involved in foreign issue, particularly as far as Myanmar. But let's see what you think about this point. I think these are the first two questions that we have received. There are more on China. We can do that later on.
Sure. Yeah, it's already a question being raised, especially with like Myanmar being not a member of the the Rome, not a state party to the Rome Statute. Well, I mean, think about it, no? If Myanmar were a state party to Rome Statute, we probably didn't even have to wait this long anyway. I mean, we didn't have to, right? But let's also remember the Rome Statute actually has the clauses or the articles that actually, could allow the unprecedented moves. For example, even this application that prosecutors submitted, the case was the investigation was open. The court actually accepted the previous prosecutor's request. It's simply because Bangladesh, being the ICC member state, allow it. And the people who, like Rohingya people who had to flee across the border to their countries, didn't come for the vacation, but came with all of these atrocious, after facing the atrocious crimes, right? So I think it's already, for the court, it was already unprecedented. Many things, when it comes to justice and accountability for Myanmar, international justice and accountability for Myanmar, the initiatives that, or the efforts of the Myanmar civil society like us, as well as the international supporters and the experts who work on the advancing the justice and international justice and accountability. I think there are all of these combined efforts. If you look at it, like I said, the case opened at the court by prosecutor's request back in 2019, for example, that was already unprecedented. And then even if you look at the current existing international mechanism called the Independent Investigative for Myanmar, Independent Investigative Mechanism for Myanmar, IIMM, it was set up by the Human Rights Council. When we advocated for this mechanism, including the international lawyers and international organizations who work on the justice accountability, got worried and even told us not to do it, not to advocate at the Human Rights Council, because Human Rights Council has never done anything like that. And many told us that Human Rights Council doesn't have the mandate. Of course, we are not the lawyers. But for us, it is our country situation. We want to see what is possible out there. We keep searching for what is possible out there. When we look at the Human Rights Council term, we don't see anything that deters the Human Rights Council not to do anything like that, not to set up a mechanism like IIMM. So we are like, why not? Why not we try it? So we try it and we got it. Of course, the prosecutorial is different, right? The ICC, the Rome Statute, Myanmar is not a member, it is true. But then, like I said, in the Rome Statute, if you look at the different articles, there could be there are possibilities for especially because these perpetrators of what they have done, there are credible evidence. So the court is set up for that. So that, I mean, like, otherwise, why the prosecutor will submit something? So we trust in the court, we trust in the Rome Statute, we know the limitations, but we also have the hope for possibilities there. So saying that, you can ask me the question, will actually, even if the court issue the arrest warrant, will Myanmar be arrested? That's a different story. But let me also clarify one thing. Right now, the court has not issued the arrest warrant yet. It is the prosecutor submitted the application. So the next step is for the court, for the judges to make the decision, right? So basically, the chamber one needs to make the decision. And this is something we're hoping that decision will be in favor of the prosecutor's application, then there will be an arrest warrant. So if there is an arrest warrant, let's look at where Myanmar is. Myanmar will not go anywhere. he will not travel to anywhere beyond China and Russia, who are the best protection shield for them. I mean, for him. So it's obviously, even there is arrest warrant, it's very unlikely that he will get arrested in near term. But what is more important here for us to grab on this is it's not about May Online being arrested right away. It's about who May Online is by international law and what he done, like violations of these international laws, violating these crimes against humanity, war crimes, and genocide that has been determined with this arrest warrant by the court. That is what it matters for us. For Myanmar to move forward, even when the revolution wins, when a time for the transition comes, there will be a time to process the justice and accountability within. And if you look at the current Myanmar's revolution, within the revolution's policy-making bodies, for example, they have already drafted very concrete, important policies looking ahead, like transition and forward to carry out, such as like transitional justice. Civil society who work on the human rights and justice are they play a very instrumental role in this kind of initiatives. So if and when the transition time comes, unless May Online dies by natural cause, which I don't know, but if it is not, if he's still in the country, of course, not only him, if there are other names being submitted to the court by the prosecutor in the coming days or weeks, who knows? And these perpetrators, unless they flee to China and China house them forever in exile, well, that's another story, right? That's another possibility. But regardless, this arrest warrant is significant. It's a milestone that international justice mechanism will tell the world these people need to be tried. I think that is what we need to actually take stock from this, rather than will May Online get arrested. The next is also, as I was sharing with you, last year, the military junta, May Online, is planning for election. Yeah. I won't be surprised. I won't be surprised. China and Russia and some others will continue to take the side with May Online and continue to support the junta-led sham election, regardless. Because after all, what they're doing, like what China is doing, is not for the people of Myanmar. It's really for their own economic and political benefit. So that's a clear story for us. There's nothing for us to be upset or angry with that. However, let's think of other countries more like, with the constitution, democratic constitution and rule base, including ASEAN. ASEAN is trying to set out and move more into the rule base with the principles on human rights, even though they are still so far from that. But with all of these like developments and processes of the community building, I'm not going to be surprised. I am not going to be surprised. Any country in the ASEAN, even in ASEAN, will be so reluctant to show their support to the military's upcoming sham election, let alone shake hands with the May Online. So that, from the political front, is also important. After all, it is, he's an international criminal. Already, issue arrest warrant. I want to really see who's actually going to bring May Online on the stage or walk alongside May Online and shake hands with him and say that we totally support your election thing. I'll see. We'll have to see. Yeah. The next question on China, I said a little bit already on that, of how far China is going to go. Well, China doesn't have the principle, right? All I can say that China has the principle, everything based on their own interests. And China's principle of based on their own interest is going to cause further harms to the Myanmar people. I think it's very important. Also, the international governments, including US, need to understand that. It's not about China and US war, really. It's about how China's threat and aggression against Myanmar people's sovereignty is actually killing Myanmar people because they are not only even complicit in Myanmar military's crimes, but they are aiding and abetting for the Myanmar military to continue to kill, continue to commit these atrocious crimes. So they are aiding and abetting these crimes, period. So for that, will the new US president do anything about it, or what is his interest in Myanmar? I mean, if you go back, his first term, I don't remember seeing any of his real interest with Myanmar or human rights or in this region, So I think, I mean, personally, for me, the past 4 years already show us, and I'm not the only one, the young people who are actually keep trying their best on the ground, they continue to firmly believe they don't wait for anybody's support or anybody's coming to help them. They have tried with their own effort, and they will continue to try with their own effort. Of course, like China, the US new policy towards Myanmar is something that we want to ensure that they are on the right track. For example, like the US new law in support of the Myanmar People's Revolution called the Burma Act, for example, already more than 2 years now. It should be, coming more with some substantial support on the ground. And I can only hope this new president will not retract those ongoing processes of the previous administration or outgoing administration support to the Myanmar People's Revolution. In fact, he can even go further. He can even support more. But again, it depends on, it really depends on who he is. Yeah. So I don't really have much hope with that. So I'll stop here.
Okay, we have still some other question, some related and some somewhat different. This is regarding China again. How much will China pressure on the MDAA and the Three Brotherhood Alliance have on the revolution? We heard one of the leader of the Brotherhood Alliance was also taken to China. What you think that will be the facts in general? Then the other question is about Thailand. Why is Thailand tightening security on Burmese refugees more and more? And maybe related to this, the case of the Myanmar person who was killed close to the border, and now another person from Myanmar is accused of the killing.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, we can continue on China. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have read China's pressure on the Taang National Liberation Army or the MNDAA, Three Brother Alliance, especially telling them to back out from where they have advanced with their administration and territorial control, and basically pressuring them to return the Northeastern Command back to the Myanmar military, things like that. But also to pressuring them not to collaborate or work with the legitimate interim government, national unity government, for example. I mean, this is all very China. And will they continue? I'm sure they will, because it's very sadly, it's very sadly. I mean, if you look at China before, like when the National League for Democracy, led by Aung San Suu Kyi, won the election in 1990, China was the first to congratulate. And again, when National League for Democracy won another overwhelming victory in 2015, look what China did. China even brought Aung San Suu Kyi to be chairing the One Belt, One Road Commission, or whatever they call it. So you see China, everything that they do is really based on their political interest. And they can be very atrocious, right? They can be very atrocious. So in a way, what I'm saying atrocious is also, they really don't care about the people. For example, like, they are willing to block the basic commodities going across the border from China side into the Myanmar side. So it is a part of like their sanctioning, or like, a part of like cutting the people's needs from their border, and not only like completely sealing the border for the refugees to come in, but of course they will open the door for our Myanmar people, especially the young women, right? Young women who've been lured into Thailand. Who've been lured to China side, where they, with the purpose of being sold into the what is the right word? To marry with a Chinese man, yeah? And these sex slave, I would say this sex slave terms where the China is really like allowing for young women from Myanmar, from different ethnicity, as like for them to enter with this kind of terms, like being sold into individuals, or prostitutions, or I mean, like, seriously, China see a short term, unfortunately. I mean, like, if some of you will follow China, and some will say that, oh, China has a long-term thinking, right? Long-term, more like a long-term development thinking and visionary and all of that. But then interesting is like, when it comes to their neighbor Burma, they're thinking, if they have the long-term thinking, maybe their long-term thinking is to colonize Myanmar. I don't know what else to think, to be very honest. If not, it has to be a short-term thinking for the short-term gain, to enable to extract and grab every natural resource that Myanmar still have, such as the raw earth, or the jade and ruby and other gems still, exist underneath. They want to ensure that they grab them before other parts of the world come in and grab them, and that they have the competitions, right? But if that is the real intention, unfortunately, whether they want to keep or try to make or want to make Myanmar as their colony, or they have this more of this short-term vision to grab all of the natural resources, they are losing the long-term vision sight for the long-term existence of the humanity. If Myanmar people go further down in the human suffering from where they are, in combination of the climate change and this, caused from the extinction of the depletion of the natural resources, will China not suffer from it? I mean, seriously, right? The same goes for the other neighboring countries like in India and Thailand as well. I mean, Myanmar people's well-being, the country's well-being, the sustainable real peace for Myanmar people is actually in the best benefit for long run for all these neighboring countries. And unfortunately, it is really upsetting, and I'm so angry, to be very honest, to see how China can be so selfish with this short-term solution. I'm just going to like stop here on the China. But one thing that I can say for sure is the people of Myanmar are very politically very clear conscious. They are so fine seeing the people of China as their friends. It's only that they are so upset with the Chinese government's policy and approach and aggression towards their efforts to bring peace to their country. So these are the two things I want to make sure that the audience really grab on. Myanmar people are very fine with people of China. And
okay, let's go
Thailand,
to Thailand. Less emotional or still more emotional?
I can be very emotional, as people know me. But let me just
So
like to
about Thailand, actually,
with Thailand,
yeah.
let's look at also from the positive side of Thailand. In the current time, we are seeing more and more allies within the Thai different sectors, including the parliament. You know, you try to see there are champions within Thailand who are seeing what the Myanmar people see of the long-term solution for Myanmar. And they are trying to also support, for example, like you see the Thai parliament, you know, like they have these different committees trying to amend the law, try to make the policy to actually, you know, like for the government to actually look into providing like temporary protection for the Myanmar people. But again, I mean, we know how making laws and policies take long and challenging with the different actors, with a different understanding, with different interests and different dynamics within each government of each countries. So what I want to say is that even though we're not seeing the Thai government as a whole able to adopt or coming up with more people-centered, human rights-based approach to the Myanmar people who had to come into their country because they don't have the human security in their own country. They're coming in only for the temporary. Nobody aimed to live in Thailand forever. It's only because they need to be able to survive out of this military's atrocious violence. I think having those champions within Thai political sphere is where I look up to for the solution. And I think we need to reach out to more and more of these individuals. And even within the new administration, we don't know. There may be those who, with the more progressive thinking, looking into being the long-term, you know, like forever going to be the neighbor, looking into the long-term solution for Myanmar. But I think there is a need for bridging between the two countries' peoples, the politicians. Politicians, I mean politicians or the leaders from the Myanmar People's Revolution. There need to be a bridge and interaction and discussion between Thai government as well as the Myanmar People's interim government and the ethnic leaders. And I don't know if you follow the ASEAN summit decision, there is a point that ASEAN leaders recognize and support Thailand to hold informal consultation. I don't know what it takes. I don't know who will be involved, who will be participating in what methodology and what framework, but Thailand has a chance now, yeah, within the ASEAN, because the whole ASEAN is sort of already giving some support. I'm not so sure how full support or not, but clearly having that Thailand's approach of this informal consultation hosting is included in the ASEAN decision. I think it is a first step for Thailand to look at positively of their role and their leadership, that they can truly show their true leadership in this region, and their leadership must be in for the Myanmar people's well-being and for Myanmar to have that sustainable solution. Because only then Thailand will have also this prosperity, sustainable prosperity within their own country as well. So I'll just end here.
So there is a related question, maybe it's the last question for today. As the official support for humanitarian relief from Thailand decreased since the former Thai ambassador Pampri resigned for internal political reasons, what kind of that you have already answered in terms of informal contact that can be of help in establishing understandable relation between Myanmar and Thailand. So the first question, maybe the last question, is more: did you see any impact of the resignation of the former ambassador in terms of decrease of humanitarian assistance to Myanmar from Thailand to Myanmar? At
Well,
the time, that was yes.
Well, this is definitely what the people of Myanmar, particularly those ethnic communities who have actually already established or further established and strengthened their local administrations and governance structures in their areas, like the Karen, the Karani. And they will look forward so much to the support from Thailand. I mean, the first initial approach from the previous foreign minister, even with a good intention, the actual approach didn't really work out. It's only also because Thailand looked into more of this, in their state-centric approach, as always, looking into this government-to-government relationship or collaboration kind of model, in which they look to the Myanmar military sitting in Naypyidaw as if they are the government of Myanmar, right? So in that humanitarian first initial effort, even though with a good intention, didn't go well because the previous foreign minister approach was to go through the Myanmar Red Cross, which is the auxiliary force and the security apparatus of the Myanmar military, that nobody on the ground have trust because of their own, because of their own act, basically. So I think that was a big shortfall. However, you're right. In the new government, we're not seeing that. But it doesn't mean that there are no discussion on it. There are champions within Thailand, including the humanitarian actors who have known Myanmar for a long time. They are also trying in their own way to actually open. And I think that's those initiatives need to be supported, not only by, of course, we want to see, as people from Myanmar, we want to see more, but we need the whole ASEAN AHA Center, and also the UN OCHA, or the other big donors. They need to look into that cross-border, channeling the humanitarian aid through the border, through these ethnic entities, including their own administrations and representatives collaboration. That's the only way. That's the only way to get the much needed aid to the most needed people or the populations. So we just have to keep trying, I'll say. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think this is the last question. I want to acknowledge that there are other questions. One refers to the tension between the UWSA and the Thai government at the moment, and the possible role Thailand seems to have asked, seeking China as a mediator in that, and that again relate to the increasing role of China in the region and in Myanmar. And there are also again some comment on China, which say China will support the junta only so long as they believe that the junta is the best chance for stability. But this is not working out very well. China really doesn't know what to do. There is also a long history of the power in Yunnan not always pursuing the same policy as Beijing. So these are comments to your talk, this last, and I think for the other question, we keep it for the next time, which will be in January, actually, because in December we take a break for the holidays, the New Year, so we take this occasion to thank everybody for their participation this year. Yes?
If I can just very quickly say one point on the
Okay.
China Beijing policy versus the Yunnan policy thing. I think, yeah, we can we can comment like that, of course, but let's not forget that this is a unitarian authoritarian state, no? I mean, why will Beijing allow anything for the Yunnan to issue any very contagious kind of a policy issue come publicly known if Beijing is not in agreement. I don't think we should buy into things like that. I think it is always the capital who will take charge of this kind of policy. So basically, we still need to be, when we want to kind of keep it as a one possible option, but we should not be, thinking that Beijing doesn't know. Thank you.
Okay, so there is someone, Kim is thanking you for your frank and sincere. There is Kim. Okay, and I think you have other fun in the group and on Facebook. So we thank all the people that follow. I think this issue of Yunnan and China is very interesting issue, and indeed, always the center and the periphery is something that for anthropologists like myself has always been quite fascinating, and there are various kinds of theories about that. So this is something to keep for the next episode, which again will be towards the end of January, when we will also reflect on the anniversary of the coup. Again, we will have Khin Ohmar with us for that event. So please continue following and look for information on our next update. For the anniversary, we will also have an exhibition at PSCC from a woman artist from Myanmar who is at the moment in Chiang Mai. Again, it's quite interesting, the artwork. Some is related to the Spring Revolution, but some is permission to stay, which refers to the fate of many people now from Myanmar that have to live in another country and they have to ask for permission to stay, in particular in her case in Chiang Mai. Okay, so I leave it with this. Again, thank you to Khin Ohmar, thank you to Mizima, thank you to the Irrawaddy for following and allowing us to spread the update on their media, who have many more people than we have, many more followers. So it really is a great help to spread this information. Thank you to all the one on Zoom. And again, since I will see you in January, Happy New Year in advance. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.